The transit coordinator saw the thermal signature on day 3 and filed it as an equipment fault. It was a small reading, low to the floor, moving steadily along the maintenance corridor on Platform 2 of the Korath relay chain. The platform processed 4,000 freight units per standard cycle and housed 612 alien personnel. Small warm bodies were not unusual. Veth Oron logged the fault, flagged it for the maintenance rotation, and returned to the cargo manifest stacked on his console. The signature moved 11 more meters, turned right at the junction near Pressure Seal 7, and held position for approximately 1 hour. Then it moved again. Veth Oron looked up from his manifests. Sira Min had not slept in 62 hours. She was 22 years old, third-year logistics cadet, posted to Korath Station on the terminal end of the relay chain. 3 days ago, a pressure failure in docking ring C had triggered an emergency transfer order. All non-essential personnel and equipment to Platform 1 for reassignment while the ring was repaired. The order had given her 4 hours. She had used 3 hours and 51 minutes loading supplies, completing the inventory handoff, and briefing her replacement on the ring's quirks. She had used the remaining 9 minutes standing in her bunk room doorway with a cat carrier in her hands and no cat inside it. Cass had been under the bunk. Cass was always under the bunk when things got loud. The pressure alarm had been running for hours. The transport had sealed its bay doors. The dock master had told her there was no exception protocol for personal animals on emergency transfers. He said it the way people say things they have decided are not their problem. She had filed a formal retrieval request from Platform 1 before the transport cleared the docking sleeve. Then she had filed an emergency petition for a transit window back to Korath Station. Then she had filed a secondary petition when the first one was flagged for incomplete documentation. She had been filing paperwork for 62 hours without sleeping, and the retrieval request was still sitting in a Thurvian administrative queue, status, pending review. She had not eaten. She had drunk 2 cups of something the Platform 1 canteen called coffee, and that was not, in any meaningful sense, coffee. Her bunkmate, a Vithran cargo inspector named Selly Vun, had watched her work through the night and finally said, "What is a Maine Coon?" "A cat," Sira said, "from Earth." Selly Vun's crest raised slightly. She had read the coalition briefs on Earth fauna. She was quiet for a moment and then said, carefully, "How large?" "Medium, she's not dangerous." Sira looked up from the screen. "She's just mine. She's been mine since I was 14. Selly Vun lowered her crest but did not look entirely reassured. She brought Sira another cup of the not coffee and said nothing more about it. On Platform 2, Cass was not waiting to be retrieved. She had spent the first night in the maintenance corridor beside Pressure Seal 7 because the seals ran warm and the corridor was dark and quiet. She had drunk from a condensation line she found by smell. She had eaten nothing, but that was not yet a problem. She was 8 years old and had crossed 3 apartments and 1 loading bay during a building fire on Earth when Sira was 19, and she had learned then that panic was expensive and stillness was not always the same as waiting. The platform had the smell of it. Cass could not explain smell the way a human might catalog it. She did not sort it into categories or build maps from it consciously, the way a dog might work a scent trail with visible effort. She simply knew the smell of Sira, 8 years of it, coded somewhere below thought, and she knew the direction in which that smell was not present. The not present direction told her something. The something was enough. On the morning of day 2, she moved forward. The maintenance corridors ran the length of Platform 2 like the arteries of a machine that had never considered the possibility of a mammal using them for navigation. There were junctions and pressure differentials and automated cleaning units that moved in timed cycles. Cass learned the cycles inside of 20 minutes and did not get cleaned. She moved between the units with the unhurried efficiency of an animal that had decided where it was going and found inconvenience merely administrative. She reached the freight transfer junction at mid-cycle on day 2. It was a wide space, not a corridor anymore, open decking, cargo containers stacked 12 high, Thurvian loading crews in their environmental rigs, the deep vibration of transit connects cycling through the floor. Cass sat in the shadow of a container base and watched for 11 minutes. Then she walked across. She did not run. She did not crouch and dart. She walked the way she walked across any room she had decided to cross, which was to say she walked without apology. 12 Thurvian freight workers watched her cross 80 meters of open decking. None of them moved to stop her. One of them took a step backward. She reached the far side and disappeared into the next maintenance run. Veth Oron found the thermal signature again that evening. It was on the far side of the freight junction, moving toward the interplatform transit corridor. He stared at it for a long time. He pulled the security footage from the freight junction and watched a pale gray earth cat walk across 80 meters of active cargo floor. He watched the Thurvian freight worker step back. He watched the cat vanish into the corridor without breaking stride. He sat down. He pulled up the retrieval requests currently flagged in the Thurvian administrative queue. There was one for a Maine Coon domestic cat, Platform 2, filed by SciFiNarration, Cadet 3rd Year, Corinth Station Logistics Division. Status: pending review. He looked at the footage again. He filed an urgent status update on the retrieval request. Then he filed a second document, which he labeled Observed Autonomous Navigation Report, and attached the footage. Then he sent a direct signal to Corinth Station. The signal reached Sierra at hour 68. She was in the middle of drafting her 4th petition. She read Veth Oron's message, which was formal and precise, and contained the phrase navigational behavior inconsistent with disorientation, and then she put her head down on the console and stayed very still for a moment. "Good news?" SciFiNarration asked. "She's on Platform 3, Sierra said. Her voice came out flat. "She's already on Platform 3. SciFiNarration pulled up the relay chain schematic. Platform 3 was the junction platform, the one with the open cargo bridge, the transfer locks, the highest foot traffic in the chain. It was 3 platforms from Corinth Station and 1 platform closer than where Cass had started. "She is moving toward you," SciFiNarration said. "She always does," Sierra said. "I just never had to track it from 140 kilometers away before." She filed the petition with the new evidence attached. This time the response came in 40 minutes. Transit window approved. Single occupant shuttle, immediate departure. She was already moving. Cass reached the cargo bridge on Platform 3 at midday. The bridge was not a corridor. It was 320 meters of open transfer span connecting Platform 3's primary freight lock to its secondary receiving bay. It ran along the exterior of the platform structure, exposed on one side to the relay void, not space exactly, but the transit corridor between platforms, a channel kept navigable by a web of tethered guide fields. The guide fields made a low sound, below hearing but present in the bones. The bridge was used by freight loaders in environmental rigs. It was not designed for anything without a rig. The wind off the guide fields ran cold and strange. Cass sat at the entrance to the bridge for 9 minutes. Veth Oron, watching on the security feed from his console on Platform 2, found himself not breathing. The thermal signature moved forward. She crossed the bridge in the same unhurried walk she had used across the freight floor. The wind moved her fur. She did not stop. Where the decking had an expansion joint, a 30-centimeter gap running across the full width, she stepped over it without pausing. Veth Oron watched the gap pass under her paws and realized he had been holding the edge of his console. She reached the far side. Veth Oron exhaled. He added 3 paragraphs to the autonomous navigation report. He described what he had observed without editorializing. He was aware, as he wrote, that the document was becoming something other than a routine transit incident log. Cass moved into Platform 3's interior and found a corner near a heating unit. She was 4 platforms from where she had started. She was 2 platforms from Corinth Station. She drank from a water recycling outlet she found by following the sound of it. She ate half a nutrition packet left beside a console by a Thurvian tech who had looked at her for a long moment, and then looked away with the studied neutrality of someone choosing not to have a problem. She slept 4 hours, then she moved to the next transit lock. Sierra docked at Platform 3 4 hours after Cass had already left it. The Platform 3 transit officer, a young Thurvian named Prail Soth, met her at the lock with an expression that was not quite alarm and not quite reverence. "Your animal passed through this platform 7 hours ago," Prail Soth said. "She crossed the exterior cargo bridge, unsupported." "I know," Sierra said. "She is currently logged in the transit feed between platforms 3 and 2. He paused. "Between 3 and 2 means she is 1 platform from Corinth Station." Sierra closed her eyes for 1 second. "Can you get a signal to the receiving dock at Corinth?" "It has already been sent. Veth Oron transmitted an all-relay advisory 40 minutes ago." Prail Soth hesitated. "Cadet Min, the report he filed, the autonomous navigation document. There are currently 9 supervisory signatures on it. The Thurvian Regional Transit Authority has requested a copy." Sierra picked up her bag. "Can I get a faster shuttle?" He got her a faster shuttle. Corinth Station's receiving dock had not been set up to wait for a cat. The dock chief, a Thurvian named Hale Morn who had run the bay for 11 years, had read Veth Oron's report 3 times. He had reassigned 2 freight handlers to do nothing but watch the thermal feeds. He had placed a water dish and a protein ration near the secondary access port, which he told himself was standard procedure for incoming biological cargo and not anything else. When the thermal signature appeared on the feed coming through the secondary access tunnel, Hale Morn said nothing. The 2 freight handlers said nothing. The Thurvian inspector who had come to observe said nothing. Cass emerged from the access tunnel into the receiving dock. She was dusty from 4 days of maintenance corridors. One of her ears had a small scratch from an encounter on Platform 2 that had not made it into any official report. She was 8 years old, and she had crossed 4 relay platforms and an exterior cargo bridge, and some 340 kilometers of transit corridor, by following something that had no name in any language currently spoken on the relay chain. She sat down in the middle of the dock floor. Then the receiving bay's outer door cycled, and Sierra Min came through at something faster than a walk. Cass did not run to her. She stood up from where she was sitting, walked the 9 meters between them at the same unhurried pace she had used on every meter of the last 4 days, and pushed her head against Sierra's shin. Sierra sat down on the dock floor. She was still in her cadet fatigues. She was not crying exactly, but her face was doing something a Thurvian freight handler could not have named. She put both arms around the cat and stayed that way. Hale Morn watched. After a while he picked up his console and added a notation to the incoming biological receipt log. He wrote, "Maine Coon domestic cat, Earth origin, arrived under own navigation following 4-platform transit separation event, approximately 340 kilometers, unsupported." He looked at what he had written. He looked at the woman sitting on the dock floor with the dusty cat on her lap. He filed the notation and went back to work. 2 weeks later, the Thurvian Regional Transit Authority issued a routing advisory. The advisory acknowledged that current relay chain protocols contained no framework for Earth-origin domestic animals navigating interplatform transit under autonomous conditions. It recommended the establishment of a formal observation category. A working group was convened. The working group's preliminary report described the navigation event as exhibiting characteristics more consistent with directed homing behavior than with opportunistic movement. It noted the bridge crossing specifically. It noted the maintenance corridor routing efficiency. It noted that no platform on the chain had reported any incident involving the animal, no personnel disturbance, no equipment interference, no logged complaint. It recommended the category be titled Autonomous Transit Navigation, Earth Origin Companion, and that the observation protocols include provisions for ensuring the animal's access to water and shelter during any future event. The word future was underlined. Sierra read the report in her bunk room at Korath Station. Cass was on the bunk beside her, already asleep. The scratch on her ear was healing. She had eaten 3 full meals and her coat had recovered most of its shine. Sierra read the underlined word. She looked at the cat. "You couldn't have waited," she said. Cass did not respond to this. She had already decided the matter 4 days ago, 3 platforms back, before anyone had thought to ask.